Welcome in the arena. My name's Allison Klein, and today I am so delighted to be joined by Dr. Rohith Vangalla, lead software engineer at Optum. Thanks so much for being here, Rohith.
Hey, hi, Alison. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I'm doing great.
Awesome. So, when I was prepping for this, I was just amazed at your background because you've got a combination of hands on engineering, academic research, and then leadership in AI. Can you just start by sharing a little bit about your background and what brought you to this intersection between AI and healthcare?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So, yeah, my path into AI and healthcare wasn't exactly a straight line. So, I
Mhm.
started as a kind of backend developer, right, working on different industries like telecom, e commerce, and healthcare. So while working on healthcare, that's where I saw how tech can truly help patients, and that stuck with me. At the same time, I was chasing my childhood dream, that is flying.
Oh,
I
wow.
even, yeah, yeah. So I even earned my helicopter private pilot license. Now I'm a pilot too. Yeah,
That's so
because of
cool.
yeah, because of my passion about the aviation, right? So flying taught me three major things, right? One is system thinking and quick decision making and precision, right? Because up there, mistakes can be costly, it's matters of lives, right? So when it comes to my PhD, I worked on, right, AI projects from chatbots to medicine platform and all those things. To me, AI isn't just a code, it's a tool that makes healthcare smarter, faster, and more human centric. That mix of engineering, flying, and research keep me passionate about AI in healthcare.
Now, one thing that I think about with healthcare in particular and AI is that it's a highly regulated industry. And I
Right.
know you've got some experience with regulations. How do you view the role of regulatory processes in responsible AI development? And what does it take to balance compliance with innovation at scale?
That's such a great question, Alison. Thank you for asking. In a healthcare, a bad model doesn't just mean poor performance. It
Hmm.
can literally cost lives. You know, in my view, I actually see regulation less as a hurdle. Why I'm saying, and
Hmm.
more like a safety rail that keeps innovation from going off the tracks, because the real danger isn't just over regulating. Let's assume if we under regulate it and let biased or opaque model into clinical care, and that could lead to like misdiagnosis, unequal treatment, and fact that, right, it could entirely erosion the trust in the healthcare system at all. So the trick is to bake responsible AI in from day one itself. So what I'm trying to say here is that we need to put fairness checks, explainability tools, and bias audits, even automatic gatekeepers in your CI/CD pipeline. So compliance isn't an afterthought; it should be part of your workflow. So at the end of the day, building trusted AI in healthcare means bringing clinicians, engineers, legal, and data scientists together early. Because when AI is explainable, fair, and monitor in real time, it doesn't hold back innovation. It actually helps you to scale it safely and responsibly.
That's an awesome perspective. Privacy is at the heart of everything that you've just been talking about.
Right.
When you approach solving these problems, are there specific architectural strategies like federated learning or zero trust frameworks that you see gaining momentum in terms of AI delivery?
Yeah, okay. That's a really great question. Thank you. It's a fascinating to see how quickly privacy first AI has moved from white papers to real world project. Just
Hmm.
take the example of you mentioned like federated learning, right? So it lets hospitals and even small rural clinics train a shared model without moving patient data off their own server. The
Mm-hmm.
data stays local, but you still get the power of collective intelligence, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
the power. And then there is the rise of zero trust frameworks. Basically, instead of assuming everything is safe once you are inside the network, but this particular framework lets every request get verified. This protects real world systems by constantly verifying every access request. So for some reason, right, if any attacker gets in, they cannot go and access entire the system. They cannot move freely. Combine that with the confidential computing, right, where data stays encrypted even while it's being processed. Just imagine, right, this is a kind of game changer for me, right? So what I'm trying to say, suddenly privacy isn't an afterthought. It should be baked right into the system. What I find exciting is about this isn't slowing us down. It's actually opening doors for international collaboration that wouldn't have been possible otherwise.
Mm-hmm. I'm so pleased as punch that you mentioned confidential computing. I worked on that when I was at Intel. It's so great to see it come to its big moment with AI.
Right.
Um, when you look at adoption of AI at scale, and if you were going to talk to other healthcare leaders, since this is such a specific space, what advice would you offer to build infrastructure that's resilient, secure, future ready?
Yeah, that's really important question, Alison. Really, thank you. So, in a healthcare, right, infrastructure isn't just about speed or power or compute, right? It's about trust and being ready for whatever comes next. So
Mhm.
first, I always recommend going for modular and API first driven approach. So that way, when better AI model arrives, you can plug it in and no need of rebuild entire system, right? So it makes upgrades so much smoother, right? So it's kind of plug and play kind of thing. When it
Mhm.
comes to the resilience, so I would strongly recommend to use tools like Kubernetes and cloud native deployments let you scale on demand and right when an issue arises, right, it will recover quickly, right, when the outage comes and all, which honestly is very critical when patient care is on the line. And security, it's non-negotiable. As we discussed earlier, right, we need to bake in zero trust framework and federated learning and right from the day one itself. So data stays local, but you will get the power of collective intelligence. So finally, right, we need to make sure system have to evolve. So we need to automate and retraining process when data shifts, and we need to make sure to have the real time monitoring so it can catch the drifts before it becomes a huge problem, right? So when you put all this together, you are not just chasing latest AI fad anymore. You are building an infrastructure that is explainable, secure, and truly future ready.
That's awesome. Now, I think the question of the day is, you are very deeply involved in the healthcare arena. Where are you seeing the most meaningful AI impact today? And which areas do you believe have the greatest potential for future innovation?
Yeah, so AI is already making a real difference in healthcare, often in a ways that aren't flashy but truly life changing. Let's take diagnostics for instance, right? So just imagine, right, AI can highlight tiny anomalies on an x-ray that even experienced eyes might miss, cutting down errors and getting patients into like treatment faster. And then there is a voice enabled documentation, right? So doctors spend less time, right, typing and more time looking at the patients in the eyes, right? Simple, but it transforms the care experience. So the patient gets more time to spend with the doctor instead of like worrying about all the documentation.
Sure.
When it comes to operations side, right, like just take the example of call centers, right? So AI routes patients to the right specialist within the seconds. So no need of endless hold music when you are anxious about your health.
Hmm.
So
That's awesome.
yeah, looking ahead, right, the shift from reactive to proactive care is what excites me the most, the predictive analytics catching the risk before you get an ER visit, that's really powerful, I feel like.
That's awesome. Now, I know that you're also an IEEE member and you're actively reviewed in peer review and judging. What research trends and technologies looking into the future are catching your attention right now in the AI infrastructure space?
Yeah, that's really good question. So honestly, when it comes to AI infrastructure, the shift towards making models not just powerful, but efficient, secure, and human aligned.
Mm-hmm.
We have come long way from training massive models that only big labs can afford, right? So now, like, industries cannot think that, hey, no, we cannot afford that kind of infrastructure, and you know thanks to technologies like LoRa, QLoRa, and the parameter efficient tuning are really changing the game. So they allow organizations, even with limited resources, to customize powerful models without breaking the bank, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, another really powerful example I saw, right? I remember attending a hackathon at a university. At one student team presented you know a lightweight AI system that could run directly in an ambulance, right? It helped paramedics to triage patients while en route based on vitals and symptoms without relying on the cloud connection and everything.
Wow.
That
That's great.
really me, because that's the infrastructure that can save the lives in the real time. So
Mm-hmm.
when you zoom out, right, the mindset has shifted. It's no longer just about can we run this fast enough, right? It's about can we run it fairly, securely, transparently, and can we do it at a scale? That's the kind of AI infrastructure I want to see more of. And honestly, it's where most impactful research is happening right now.
So that's awesome. One of the other things that people think about as we're making strides with infrastructure and models is fairness, transparency, and delivered for performance and production. And I think that one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is how do you and your team evaluate AI models for these key core capabilities for healthcare environments?
Yeah, this is something I care deeply about. In healthcare, it's not just enough to ask, does this model work, right? Instead, we have to ask, is it working fairly and for everyone, right? So, first and foremost, we test it across diverse patient groups. That means, right, different ages, genders, ethnicities, even socio-economic background. Because honestly, when the most accurate model can still be biased, right? If it's only performs well for certain people. And in healthcare, that's not at all acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Then is a question of transparency, right? I really believe that clinicians have to trust what AI is doing, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
they simply won't use it anymore. Hey, this is not working for me. So that's why we use tools like Sharp to break down the why behind a production, meaning we are explaining why we are giving this production, right? So we are not just throwing out a risk score and walking away. Hey, this is the risk score we are giving to this patient. We are saying that here is why the model thinks this patient may be at risk, and here is what contributed most to the decision. That builds the confidence, right? And finally, we took at performance, but in the real world terms. Is it fast enough for a clinical workflow? Does it integrate smoothly with an EMR system? And most importantly, is it actually improving patient outcomes or not? Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about the models or metrics or anything, right? This is about people's health. We need to get it right, not just technically, but ethically too.
I love that. Um, Now, Rohith, you're speaking at the AI Infrastructure Summit, which is why you're on this podcast. We're doing an entire series of practitioner interviews, and this one has been fascinating. But can you give us a preview of the key messages and messages that you're going to be sharing at your speech, which I'm very excited to see?
Yeah, sure. I'm really excited about that conference too. Yeah. So actually, I'm going to talk about, right, kind of balancing between the privacy versus performance kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So especially when you are choosing between, right, cloud, on-prem, or hybrid setups for AI. Cloud is great, right? You will get a speed, scalability, cost optimization, and latest tools and all the stuff. But on-prem, right, that gives you more control and better data residency, and which is a big deal in a healthcare. You cannot compromise on that part. So
Mm-hmm.
what we'll be talking about is that how hybrid often hits that sweet spot. You keep your sensitive data at local but offload the heavy compute to the cloud. And we will also get into, like, confidential computing, which is honestly like a kind of game changer. So at the overall, right, so I want folks to live with a, like, clear, like, kind of a practical framework, not just what flashy, trendy, or what's available in the market, but how to pick what actually works for their use cases, so they can scale the AI, stay cost effective, and still keep privacy front and center.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see it. And anybody who's attending AI Infra who is listening to this podcast, please prioritize this session on your agenda. I'm going to ask you one more question about the topic. When you look at the challenges that we've talked about in terms of infrastructure, model selection, ensuring privacy, etc., there's so much to manage through. But at the end of the day, there's an opportunity to completely transform healthcare with AI. Tell me what you're most excited about the future, and how do you want your work to contribute to that collective future?
Thank you. Thanks a lot for that question, Alison. Yeah. Honestly, for me, right, I'm so excited to see that how AI is shifting healthcare from being reactive to truly proactive. We are no longer just treating illnesses, right? We are getting closer to anticipating it. Just imagine this for a second, right? A patient hasn't shown any symptoms yet, but an AI model picks up subtle changes from wearables, lab reports, imaging data, and flags. And basically, it flags an early risk of something like heart failure or sepsis. And because of that, a clinician steps in before things can get escalate, or before hitting to the ER room, right? That's not just innovation for me. That's a life changing. What even more powerful is how this tech can reach places that need it most. Think like rural clinic with a no cardiologist on site, right? Just think of like India or African countries, right? But an AI powered tool can support general practitioner in making critical diagnosis. That's how we start closing, right, health equity gap, not just by building smarter models, but by making them accessible. My hope and vision is to create something that feels like a health and mental wellness companion, always available, no judgmental calls or non-judgmental, and support you when people need it most, especially for those who feel like they don't have anyone else to turn to. To
That's
me, yeah, the best AI in healthcare should feel like, caring a friend, quietly working in the background to make sure people feel seen, supported, and safe. That's kind of future, right? I want to help to build also.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your vision and what you're doing at Optum. This is so exciting. It's a great time to be in computing and see what practitioners like you are delivering in terms of new capabilities. One final question, and I'm sure that folks will want to connect with you. Where can they continue the dialogue and connect with you to learn more about what you and your team are doing at Optum?
Yeah, actually, right, if people can connect with me through LinkedIn is the best place, right? I actively like look into it and monitor it. And to people get to know about Optum, right, they can go to like Optum and Optum Marketplace. So they'll get all these new articles and trials or whatever happening around it. They'll get to know more about that.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're a busy guy. We loved the interview, and we can't wait to continue the dialogue.
Same here. Thank you, Alice.